Welcome back. I'm going to give a short introduction to a spectral analysis as part of the Digital Transformation Multi-aspectual Approach workshop. A spectral analysis. We've been through Dooyeweerd's aspects, all 15 of them, and a spectral analysis is using these aspects to identify the ways in which issues are meaningful or relevant to a given topic, such as digital transformation. Dooyeweerd's aspects are very helpful for this. Probably the best we have, better even than Maslow's hierarchy of needs. A spectral analysis. It can be used to understand a topic, just collecting a lot of issues. A spectral analysis is good for uncovering issues that are often taken for granted or ignored. It can be used to detect bias. It can be used to assess failure or success, because each aspect has a norm, and that's particularly useful for understanding failure in digital transformation. It could be used for design or planning, such as a roadmap to success. There are two main types that I'm going to be talking about here: aspect by aspect, issue by issue. In the first, we just go through each aspect and ask what issues are meaningful in this aspect. In the second, we collect issues, and then for each issue ask what aspect makes it meaningful. First, aspect by aspect analysis. This has been pioneered by my colleague Suzanne Kane. She found it useful to explain the aspects to the interviewee, taking every 10 minutes. Because the aspects can be grasped by our intuition better than by definition, she found that almost everyone had a reasonable understanding of even all 15 aspects. In aspect by aspect analysis, we can go through from the quantitative through to the pistic aspect, or in reverse order, as we did in our previous talk, where I gave some examples of issues relevant to digital transformation. Or it's better to start with an aspect that is meaningful to the person concerned. So Suzanne would often ask what aspect an interviewee would like to start with. Whichever aspect we start with, we begin to ask what issues are meaningful there. So, for example, in digital transformation, in the formative aspect, we've got things like the technology used, we've got what the digital transformation is expected and hoped to achieve, what each part is intended to achieve, what its task or purpose is, what it actually achieves in the lives of those who use it and are affected by it, and what also it hinders. And you can talk endlessly about such issues if we like. Once an aspect has been covered, then go to another aspect, in any order that the interviewee wishes. And at the end, just perhaps ensure that every aspect has been covered. Suzanne would say, would you like to say something about so-and-so aspect that she knew hadn't been covered? And often such aspects were seen by interviewees as either too trivial to mention or perhaps a bit embarrassing. And by inviting them to talk about the issues in these aspects, it helped them open up. And the interviewees all found this a very valuable exercise. The issue by issue analysis was pioneered by my colleague Mike Winfield. You collect issues either from interviews or from literature and ask which aspects make this issue, each issue, meaningful. In an interview, it's probably useful to, might have found, to start with a couple of aspects, but explain the aspects beforehand, so that the interviewee is in charge rather than the interviewer. So, for example, in veterinary surgery, you might start with the biotic and the economic aspects. Collect issues, which aspects make these issues meaningful. Then go to other issues by asking things like why and what else. And at the end, Mike found it useful to invite the interviewee to consider unused aspects, ones they hadn't talked about yet. This helped to uncover tacit knowledge. I'll give an example of this from the literature. This is a recent excerpt from a little publication from Forbes by Blake Morgan on failures of digital transformation. GE focused on size instead of quality. Ford, its digital service was separate from the rest of the company instead of integrating digital solutions. Procter & Gamble didn't consider the competition an impending economic crash. So we can analyze these statements. Focused on is the analytic aspect. Size is not actually the spatial aspect, it's more the quantitative aspect, instead of quality, which is probably the juridical or aesthetic aspect, perhaps the ethical. Separate from and integrating speak of the aesthetic aspect. Competition speaks of the economic aspect, or perhaps the biotic. And the economic crash is certainly economic aspect. Impending is probably the historical or formative aspect. So as you can see, you can take key ideas from what people say and find out what's meaningful to them in terms of aspects. With this, you can count up the number of aspects and see, for example, if people emphasize one aspect much more than others, and then perhaps ask about the overlooked aspects. I'm going to leave you, for your exercise, with a reminder of the norms and the problems meaningful in each aspect.